When it comes to beautiful classic cars, they're not all cut from the same cloth. Looks can be deceiving. They might turn heads on the road, but behind the wheel, it's a whole different story. In this video, we go over the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive.
How about this? The new Elante! What do you think? What do you think?
I think you got it.
I know I've got it. I shall be the Elante girl, for I have invented the Bundy bounce.
First up is the Cadillac Elante. When it comes to eye-catching convertibles, the Elante takes the crown for beauty. This Cadillac had a touch of Italian flair, courtesy of the renowned Pininfarina coach builder. Yup, the same folks who've lent their design magic to legendary rides like Ferraris, Alfa Romeos, and Lancias. The Elante wasn't just a car, it was a slice of automotive amore. This gorgeous two-door convertible was awfully underpowered though. Its V8 power plant only made around 200 horses. As a result, a sprint 60 miles per hour takes it over 9 seconds. Next up is the Chevrolet Corvette C2. So in 1963, America's first sports car, the Chevrolet Corvette, unveiled its second generation. It was the year of the legendary split-window rear-end design. It was a one-year wonder. Sure, the second-gen Corvette was a visual feast, turning heads inside and out. But when it came to handling, oh boy, it was like trying to teach a cat to tap dance. Next up on the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive, well, we gotta throw in the AMC Pacer. In terms of design, finding a car as adorable as the AMC Pacer is almost impossible. This small subcompact won over both the media and buyers, all thanks to its distinctive exterior design. Sadly, everything else about the AMC Pacer was truly awful. The reputation of the Pacer dropped just a few years after its debut, causing the sales to plummet irreversibly. The car was eventually discontinued less than 5 years after it first hit the market in 1975. Next on our list is the Pontiac Fiero. Would you believe it? The Fiero proudly struts in as one of the most innovative American cars ever, with its mid-size engine setup, feather-light frame, and a design to make heads turn. It seemed like Pontiac was onto something big. But brace yourself, because despite all the glitz and glamour, the Fiero was like a Hollywood blockbuster with a terrible plot. During development, it appeared as sturdy as a fortress. Fast forward to reality, and it was more like a cardboard box in a rainstorm. The Pontiac Brainiacs dreamt of fitting it with a cool 1.8-liter engine, but GM threw a curveball and slapped on a shoddy, budget-friendly 2.5-liter Iron Duke. Next up on the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive is the Chevrolet Nova SS. Back in the swinging 60s, muscle cars flaunted price tags that made potential buyers break into a cold sweat. But fear not, for Chevrolet swooped in like a superhero with a cape made of common sense. Their ingenious solution? The Chevrolet Nova SS. The muscle car on a budget. But hold on to your horsepower, because the Chevy Nova SS is more like a muscle car that got a participation trophy. Truth be told, it was a bit like driving a grumpy riding lawnmower, prone to more issues than a soap opera, unless you're ready to give it a makeover with some heavy modifications. Let me take some time to thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. If you haven't subscribed, would you please do us a favor and do that as soon as possible? Do it now, in fact. We would love to get to the 100,000 subscriber mark. Hey, thanks again for watching the Boca Brother Classic Car channel on YouTube. All right, let's get back into the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive. It's a Chrysler Crossfire. Remember those? I still see those on a daily with that nice little automatic flip-up tail in the back. In a bizarre twist, Chrysler thought it would be a fantastic idea to grab the Mercedes-Benz SLK sports car and give it a makeover fit for a Hollywood star. The result? A Chrysler Crossfire with a sleek new body that turned heads. But boy oh boy did it turn hearts sour everywhere else. Looks can be deceiving, and in the case of the Crossfire, they were downright misleading. The supposed sports car was more like an athlete stuck in the starting block, underpowered and clumsily built. Sales were as disappointing as a canceled parade, leading Chrysler to yank the Crossfire off the stage just 4 years after its grand entrance. Next up is the Mercury Cougar XR7. The Cougar joined Ford's lineup shortly after the debut of the Mustang. Both vehicles rode on the same platform and shared most of the same underpinnings, including the drivetrain options. While the Cougar may have looked great, its performance was simply not up to standards. This is especially true for the examples produced in the 1970s, the same time as the second-gen Ford Mustang. Next up on the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive, the DeLorean DMC12. Ah, the DeLorean. That time-traveling icon from the 80s. It cruised its way into the iconic status, thanks to its starring role in Back to the Future. But here's the punchline. While it could warp time on the silver screen, the real-life DeLorean was a bit more everyday commute than flux capacitor adventure. Time travel dreams sold separately. The DeLorean DMC12 is infamous for its poor handling and build quality issues. To make matters worse, its 130 horsepower V6 motor is awfully underpowered. The DeLorean may look like a fast car, but that could not be further from reality. Next up on our list of the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive, would you believe, the Chevrolet Corvette C1. Surprisingly, America's inaugural sports car didn't score a home run right off the bat. General Motors went into overdrive with advertisements, hyping it up so much that they had to kick production into high gear just to meet the deadline. Turns out even the pioneers needed a bit of last-minute hustle to hit the road. The original '53 Corvette was truly horrendous. The interior lacked any ergonomics, and the car's 6-cylinder motor was just not powerful enough. The build quality was awfully poor, too. The early production C1 Corvette was so bad that Chevrolet nearly discontinued the model just a year after its debut. Last on our list of the great-looking cars that were a nightmare to drive, now this one is great-looking. It's the Dodge Viper First Gen. If there's an American sports car that's basically the wild stallion of the road, it's hands down the original first-gen Dodge Viper. If you're a rookie behind the wheel, think twice before attempting to tame this powerhouse. It's not a car, it's a daredevil in sheet metal. Yes, the original Viper is as Spartan as a sports car can possibly get. Its lightweight body paired with a screaming V10 motor rated at 400 horsepower, as well as the lack of most driver assists, was a dangerous mix indeed. It takes loads of skill and bravery to drive one of these beasts. Well, there you have it, the top 10 beautiful cars that were a nightmare to drive. Hey, thanks to those who support our channel by subscribing to the Boca Brothers. And if you're not a subscriber, help a brother out. Subscribe and hit them bells for future notifications. How about that? This is Danny B with the Boca Brothers YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.